snap. What's that you got on?
Yo, these new R.1s by Randy.
I'm in the future with this. I'm stepping on top of the world. These are the new R.1s by Rampage. Order right now. Land to land, sea to sea, state to state. These are official. Don't wait. The R.1s by Rampage. Rated R Empire. Yep.
Hey, get your pair right now by going into the description box and clicking the link at the top line of the description box. Tell them your boy Old God and Sandman from the Hip Hop Uncensored podcast sent you.
Have you ever heard from anybody in our black community saying that blacks or Jewish people had black slaves as well back during the transatlantic slave trade? If so, what's your thoughts on that?
If a Jewish person had a black slave?
Yeah, no, they go ahead.
Their role, can you acknowledge the Jewish people's role in the transatlantic slave trade?
So again, I wouldn't use the phrase the Jewish people because there's no checks came to me and I'm a Jew, but it seems like upon investigation there were Jews that were involved in the transatlantic slave trade. There were Jews that maybe insured ships, owned ships. It seems like Jews were in almost every business in the world. So as far as reparations go and what to do about that, that's not something you take to the Jewish people. That's like if I had a family member that was killed by a gangster in California, in Compton, that's like me making it your issue. So I'm like, oh, so he's killed by a gangster. What are you guys going to do about that? Be like, oh, you know what? I'm also against violence in the streets. So you're on my team. So I think if like I was a descendant of a ship that I found out my ancestors were brought and it was owned by a Jew, I would just Google and be like, who is this family? Did they still have money? Do they have like $1 billion corporation? Maybe we should pressure them for reparations. Maybe I would even be on your team in pressuring them to give reparations. Maybe that's the fair thing. But that's not the Jews as a whole. That's going to be evil families who did things that were against the Torah that they should be punished for. You can't kidnap a human, and you can't do that stuff. But that being said, in the Torah, in the Bible, there are laws of slavery. And the slave has to be treated even better than the owner, meaning if you have one meal left, your slave gets it. If you got one bed and it's between your slave gets it. Your slave has to have premium treatment. If you injure your slave, you got to pay him and let him go free. You got to provide for your slave a wife and take care of your slave's kids. The slave had rights beyond even people today. This is 3,000 years ago that the Israelites brought these rights into the world. It's a beautiful thing. So I'm not saying slavery is good, but if a person was God-fearing and kept a slave according to the laws of the Torah, that slave should have a good life and a path towards liberation and freedom after a certain amount of years of whatever reason got him into that slavery in the first place. Maybe he owed a debt, maybe he stole, maybe he volunteered in some cases. But I'm with you. Is if there were some evil Jewish families who kidnapped humans and hurt them, you got to find out who their descendants are and see.
I want to kind of go back to the slavery real quick because I wanted to add something in there because we came to a consensus, and correct me if I'm wrong anywhere, that Jewish people insured some of the slave ships and that they helped fund slavery, right or wrong, before we go on.
I read this from people who reported it. I don't know enough about this. Okay. But it would make sense to me. Jewish people are in almost every business in the world.
So with that being said, you don't think that they should have to pay reparations for that?
Facts. They should. That's not the Jewish people. That's not the state of Israel. That's going to be individual families who you should be able to trace till today of what business is their family in. So, let's say it's the Levi family insured some slave ships. I'd want to see what's the great-great-grandson of this Levi guy doing today. Does he got a big corporation? Maybe we could approach them with humility and love instead of angrily demanding reparations. Be like, maybe give 10% of your revenue back towards community food forests where we could have organic medicine and edible foods in our community to help alleviate poverty and health. So who knows what it is, but it's not the Jewish people. It's the descendants of those specific families that insured those ships have to take responsibility. And if they don't, America should take responsibility. And if not them, the Muslim slave trade that sold these people originally to these Jewish ships should take responsibility. At the end of the day, I think the African American community has to make a choice. Do they feel like they're God's chosen people who came to the ships on America from prophecy? Or are they not, and they just got taken from whatever religion they were in Africa, and that's not, it's not cool, because if they're God's chosen people, then them getting taken on the ships is part of the prophecy. So what's all of a sudden now they're getting upset? But I thought, didn't you just say this was prophesized and God chose you to do this
Right.
mission? So you know,
Correct. If that's the case, when do those curses run out? At what point?
hey, that's between you guys and God. But if you look at the story of Joseph in the Bible, Joseph was sold into slavery by his brothers, and then he gets to rise to second in power in Egypt, and then his brothers roll through to buy food, and Joseph, he like sets him up in a trap, and he's like reveals to them, "Yo, I'm Joseph. I'm the one you sold as a slave. Now I'm second in power." And the brothers thought he was going to get revenge and kill them. And he's like, "No, no, no, no. It's all good. I'm your brother and I love you. Don't you see this was all from God?" He didn't get angry. He didn't play the blame game. He didn't say to the brothers, "Where's mine?" He did it. He rose up and he just forgave because he saw it was God's plan. And I'm not telling you guys to turn a cheek and look the other way, but
Mhm.
what do you feel? Are you God's chosen people who came on the ships? So then it's not between you and the white man. This is between you and God.
Now, this is a hypothetical question because obviously it didn't play out the way it played out. But let's say the roles were reversed and it was black people in the higher position after coming off of their atrocities of their Holocaust, and it was the Jewish community who sat back oppressed in America. How would your feelings be? How would your thought process be? Would it be a feeling of anger, or would you still practice turn the other cheek and let's see how this plays out?
It wouldn't be anger, because being angry is not strategic. Angry doesn't make you function better, doesn't make you smarter, doesn't make you more cunning. The Jewish people have an edge over almost all other humans on the planet is our unity within each other. So let's say I'm traveling around the world, I can get lost in any city in the world. I'll find the nearest Jewish person. They don't know who I am for a hole in the wall, but they'll take me into their house, they'll feed me, they'll
Mhm.
give me a loan, they'll take care of me. The Jewish people internationally, without knowing each other, have a love and a bound responsibility to protect one another. So wherever the Jewish people were in exile, when we were the underdogs, which happened for the last 2,000 years, we always banded together, made a strategy, and figured out how to get out of there or manipulate the situation. So we never gave up. We never had despair. We never got angry. We always responded back with unity and strategy. Now, the African American community does not have unity, and I'm not even blaming them, because it looks like the powers that be are seeking to cause a disunity against them. But the fact that you go to Chicago and everyone's shooting each other over there, obviously we could say where the drugs come, where the guns come from, probably from from not from these guys. It was given to them to cause this to happen. But the power to heal and unite comes from within. It's not going to come from the white man. It's going to come from within your community, where you guys say, hey, the only way out of this miserable situation is as a nation. So whether that's a good leader that's going to arise or some type of repentance, it's not going to come from anywhere else besides yourself, your salvation.
Are you aware though of like what happened in this country with Black America? Because every time, and no excuse, but every time we tried to build up and do for ourselves and strategize, got burned down by this government. Are
Yeah,
you
you
aware
see
of all
like the
those
Black Wall
different?
Street, and with
Yeah,
the advent of the crack cocaine and the crystal meth and the laws that arrest them, the for-profit prison companies that are
right.
making
Those
businesses
are
out of
atrocities.
yeah.
Those are things. Those are things that happen. It's just like Jewish people killed. Media propaganda against us. All the same thing is happening to Black people in America. Still,
Yes, you're up against a tremendous battle, and you need a very masterful leader to unite you guys together to be a force that no one can mess with. Imagine if you had your own ADL, that anytime someone stepped out of line with your community, that you guys had a unified voice, and everyone, all your
yeah,
celebrities, all your rappers pooled all your money together for this one organization. So that's what
right.
the Jewish people is. We're just one unified ball of energy. Everyone gives their $1 million checks to these organizations to protect us, and we're unified. You don't see fighting amongst the Jewish people like this. So I think if the African American, and Kanye mentioned this, he's like, we got to
Right.
learn from the Jews
Yeah.
how to be a nation, how to be a people. And I think that would be the most beautiful thing. I'm rooting for the African American community to unite and become a people.
You alluded to in a couple of times in the conversation there being a divide in their agenda from a certain powers that be to kind of separate the two. Do you why do you think that separation is happening? The divide between us as a black community and the Jewish community? What do you think the ultimate goal behind that is? Because when we see it in the media, like we've been watching over the last month, it definitely seems as though they're trying to create a divide. Even like the last couple of times we've had conversation, we're talking about the people in black media that are publicly slaying Kyrie Irving, publicly slaying Kanye West, and now starting to do it to Dave Chappelle, just seemingly because it seems like the popular thing to do, or somebody's writing their check and they're scared to say something different. So why do you think this divide is happening in your opinion? Like why they seem so hell-bent on keeping these cultures separate?
Because there's classes in America, and they want to keep everyone in their class to play their role so America can function as a well-oiled machine. So they're not trying to get people to level out and change the system. You see in like 1969 when these guys started taking LSD, and they're like tune in and tap out, take down the man, and the government was like, whoa, 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 whoa. There's no tuning in and tapping out of anything. You're playing your role and you're going to report to your scheduled duty as commanded. And they stepped in and they made all these drugs illegal and gave us these plant medicines illegal and gave us drugs that would make us numb. So it was not just between the blacks and the whites. It was anytime there's a attempt to awaken and gain freedom in this country, you're going to get suppressed. Now, if I was a ruling class trying to keep everyone obedient and staying in their lane, first of all, you see Kanye mention the fluoride in our toothpaste. Yeah, they're putting chemicals in our food that makes us docile, makes us able to go with the program. But if I was this ruling class and I saw, wait a minute, you got Hebrew Israelites in Western Africa who are awakening, but they're the same guys we brought to the Americas and they're awakening. What's going to happen if they link up with the Jews? What happens if they become a unified force? That's just too much power. That's just too much influence. I think that's a threat to the control that this government has established. If your community, my community, linked up, it would get the best of all the worlds. We'd have all of our assets on the table together as one force. Can you imagine that? How we could shift the future of the world so quickly? That's not in the interest of the powers that be.
I honestly, I don't think that Jewish people, this is my opinion, but want to relinquish power, share power with anybody. In my opinion, get what
Yeah,
I'm
there's
saying?
two different things. There's the Jewish people who are just, listen, there's right now you have, let's say, 15 or so million. I don't know how many Jews, 15 or so million Jews. Now you got 100 million people around the world that's saying they're from the house of Israel, from the lost tribes of Israel. So the Jewish people are like, yo, there's about 10 times more people than we are that say they're who we are. And if they start coming back, how does the right of return go into Israel look? Who gets citizenship? Who's in control of the Torah and its laws? It's such an overwhelming, scary thing for the Jewish people. So the Jewish people are not looking to hold on to power. We're looking to hold on to our tradition of Moses without letting it get affected. But when it comes to power in the world and governance, I think the Jewish people had enough of being in exile. We don't want to be under a dark rulership anymore. In fact, that the 2,000-year-old Talmudic teaching says there's no practical difference between the days of the Messiah and the days before it, except that the yoke of the nation's off our shoulders. No more government, middlemen, centralized government ruling over us. So the Jewish people are looking to free themselves from this oppression as well.
Do you believe that people in the Jewish community that want to free themselves from oppression would open their doors to black male or females who consider themselves or identify as Jewish people, like you alluded to earlier? If there's a Jewish man, or if you were walking down and something happened to you, you found the nearest Jewish man, they're going to provide you with food, shelter, maybe even a loan. You're going to stick together. Would that same thing apply for an individual with a different hue than you, but practicing the same religion?
Yeah, so I think that the Jewish people will always test, even me. So like let's say I look a little Jewish. I got the beard, I got the hook nose, I'm white, I got the Jewish features. So now let's say I go to an ultra Orthodox Jewish community, where they speak Yiddish and they don't have TVs or cell phones, and I need to pray. So I'm like passing on the highway, I'm like, let me pull over and pray with these guys, because they're my Jewish brothers. So I walk into this place and I look different. I'm wearing a baseball cap, I'm wearing a blue colored shirt. These guys don't wear baseball caps, they wear white shirts. So when I walk into their synagogue, everyone gets like alerted. They're like, oh, we got a foreigner here. They look at me as a foreigner. So then they come over to me like a little swarm of bees, and they say like, oh, hello, who are you? Where are you from? They start to grill me. And it could be very uncomfortable for a guest. But for me, I understand what they're doing. They just want to know, feel safe that I'm with them.